YouTube found community, Jimi Hendrix fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we're here today to talk about Jimi Hendrix Experience's debut album, Are You Experienced, released in 1967, one of the best debut albums of all time. This is the US version, this is a reissue. The US version differs greatly from the UK version, dropping 3 of those songs, adding 3 singles, which was kind of, par for the course in the American records, but also a much more psychedelic album cover that Jimmy was much more into. He wasn't a big fan of the British one, which is kind of a darker looking cover where he's kind of like standing over Mitch and Noel. He wasn't too big on that one, so they went out with a different photographer, took these pictures in the park. Jimmy wore his crazy outfits, they all did. And then the guy who took the picture had these different effects he was able to use with a fisheye lens and get a much more psychedelic cover out of it, which really for me is the better cover. This is a 2014 Experience Hendrix pressing, all analog mastering, and it sounds phenomenal. If you're looking for one Jimi Hendrix record reissue to pick up, this thing sounds unbelievable. If you can't afford an original, this is the next best thing. Really quick little history about Jimi Hendrix. We all know the story. He was playing in clubs. He wasn't really making it. Keith Richards' girlfriend saw him play live, introduced him to the Rolling Stones management. They weren't too hot on him. Got him over to Chaz Chandler, who was leaving the Animals. He wanted to produce people. Chaz said yes, picked him up, got him in the studio, got the other guys together who were leaving different bands, and the whole thing just gelled so perfectly and so quickly. And Chaz didn't have a whole lot of money to pour into the group, but he believed in them, and ultimately he was right because this album proved to be a humongous seller and still proves to be a humongous seller more than 50 years after it came out. In the UK, the album opens up with Foxy Lady. In the US, it opens with Purple Haze, which I think is also a great opener. They're both fantastic openers, but I mean, what more could be said about this song? I mean, it's fantastic. It's a rockin', funky jam. It's one of those songs you hear and you're like, whoa, kind of catches you off guard. And that's really how I think a lot of American audiences must have felt at that time. Hearing something like this, like from a different dimension. And you gotta remember too, Hendrix's first couple of singles in the US in 1967 did not sell that well. Some underground college radio stations had a good time with him. They loved that, but mainstream rock and roll wasn't picking him up just yet. It wasn't until the Monterey Pop Festival where Paul McCartney was like, look, I'll be on the board of directors if you get Hendrix to play Monterey Pop. They got him on there. Hendrix lit his guitar on fire, and the music scene changed overnight forever. And again, the record company Reprise wasn't too stoked about it at first. They were like, all right, well, let's try it. They put a ton of promotional effort into this thing, and it paid off. It was a humongous seller again, so did well for itself. Hit number 3 or 5, I think, on the charts. Then it stayed on the charts for a very, very long time. But, anyways, back to Purple Haze. It's 3 people making an iconic masterpiece that sounds like nothing else. So, hypnotic, perfectly filled with melody. Jimmy's vocals are so soulful and yearning, and it really just sounds like he's coming from a different planet, which I know I've said that before, but he is otherworldly with how talented he was. And there's I remember reading Pete Townshend's autobiography years ago, and there's a great part in that book where he says, look, a lot of the times if you missed an artist, it's not fair to say, you should have been there, because you can listen to their records and get the idea. But he said missing Jimi Hendrix live is something that he wishes people were able to see him play live because that was something extremely special. So I can agree with that. Obviously, I was born way after he died. Would have been great to see him. Manic Depression is in the second track on here, and the bell work on the cymbal on this track is just frantic and maniacal. And having that drumming that's kind of all over the place adds such a tension to an already tension-riddled track. And the sort of guitar stuff that Jimmy does also adds to the excitement of this song. The fuzzy solo break is brilliant. That slinky riff that he does is great. The bass rolling along to keep everything from falling apart. Hell of a jam. What a song. Hey Joe, early single from this album for the Experience. Slow burner type of blues song. And this is one of the tracks that Chaz Chandler imagined them doing, which I think Jimmy had been doing on his own anyway, solo. And so they got the group to do it. And it's a knockout of a track. I mean, the production on this song is fantastic, and the use of open space is great. The way it grows together is fantastic. The background vocals with the female group are fantastic. It's just a really well done song. The solo on this one is very reminiscent of Clapton. I can see Clapton kind of playing in that sort of same style. But that steady rhythm is an infectious head bobber, man. Cool song. Love or Confusion. The constant soloing against that vocal, I love that. What a cool dynamic. The bass is all over the place. The drums keep popping up. The madness on this song is a masterclass, and the way they rein in this chaos is something that Hendrix Experience was perfect at. They were able to create this cacophony, but have it reined in enough that the tape could record it. There's rumors and there's stories about how when Jimmy was recording this album, his Marshall stacks were so loud the room was shaking, and they would tell him to turn it down, and they'd even turn off the monitors inside the studio room to turn those off completely and just hear what was coming out of the booth, and even that was too loud. So, you can't mess with perfection, man. May This Be Love. I love the spacey UFO intro on this thing. It sounds like you're landing inside an LSD trip or something. I would guess. I've never done LSD. The tom-tom led drums, Jimmy's classic clean tone strumming, which I'm a sucker for. Anytime Jimmy gets clean on his guitar tone and strums, his strumming pattern, the way he picks the strings and the way his hand moves against those strings is very unique. He creates this watery, fluid kind of feeling. It just sounds perfect. There's never a bad note there. Look at the intro to Little Wing, for instance. It's something like that. This is a gorgeous song and one of Jimmy's best vocals. A very underrated track for me. And then the last song on here, I Don't Live Today. Such a good song. It's a rocking song, man. Love the drums that start this one. The echo in Jimmy's voice. It's lyrically a very unique song about life and your place in the world and figuring out how you fit into that mold and your own mental state during all that. The song is a classic sing-along. Hell of a song, man. Just the fade-outs, trippy. Everything about this song is so cool. This band is so cool. Side 2 starts out with The Wind Cries Mary. Love the tender guitar on this thing, as I was talking about earlier when Jimmy does the softer stuff. And this song was chosen to particularly show off that they can do softer stuff. They weren't just known as like this tornado of a group. So this was a very well-chosen song as a single to prove they were more than just the loud raucous band, which I think is good, because if you look at a group like the Trogs, for instance, they had Wild Thing, but then they also had Love Is All Around. Two completely different worlds, but they nail it both times. Same with this. So you get Purple Haze, and you get The Wind Cries Mary. Same group, two different worlds, they nail it. I love the solo on this song. An optimistic track overall, but really good melody on this one. Then you get Fire. What more can be said about this song? It's upbeat, it's fierce, it's commanding. It's just a hell of a track that grabs you and won't let go until it's over. Blasting rock and roll magic, instant sing-along. It's just the Hendrix Experience at their best. I can't say anything more about that song than that. Fantastic. Third Stone from the Sun. I love when they get experimental. Of course, this is the classic song where Jimmy mentions that surf music is gone. Surf music is done. I love the sound effects on the vocals, the dreamy outer space atmosphere. They nail a rock and roll version of what outer space would sound like. If you've ever heard Holst do The Planets, the classical work, I love that classical work. Holst creates this atmosphere that sounds daunting, overwhelming, sometimes scary, sometimes joyous, about this expansive realm that we'll never understand. And that record, there's many versions of what's been done for that. Hearing that particular music is a trip, because you get to experience something so grand beyond ourselves that we'll never understand. And this music does a great job of articulating that heavy emotion. That's what I get from this track in particular, but in a rock and roll vibe. And he nails it. He nails that feeling of travel to distant planets that we'll never understand. I don't know how the hell he does it, but he did it. Then you get Foxy Lady, one of Jimmy's most sexy rockin' songs of all time. That riff, how the hell do you come up with this stuff? It's a monster of a song that melts hearts. This guy was smooth, and this song is a calling card to be like, hey, if you like somebody, play them this song, it'll melt them. The breaks on this thing, the jamming, the tone, the back and forth rhythm, he nails it. They all do. They're all fantastic. Not just Jimmy, but everybody here is just a knockout performer. And then it ends with Are You Experienced, which is just like a mission statement, if you will, that backwards sounding effect. The military-esque drumming, the calm verse vocals, you know, the mission statement from another planet of being like, hey, have you been experienced? I've been experienced. Not necessarily stoned, but I've been experienced. You know, like, it's like an otherworldly spiritual kind of thing. You know, Jimmy came down with Mitch and Noel to make this music to live in our psyches and our consciousness forever, and the music world is better for it because this album exists. This album was a game changer. This album influenced so many bands to exist and to pick up guitar, bass, and drums and start playing music, and they still do. This album still sounds as fresh today as it did in 1967. Probably more exciting back then just because of how the music scene was changing so constantly, but when you put this album on, this album is still a game-changing, stop what you're doing, whoa kind of moment. If you've never heard this album before, do yourself a favor, pick it up. Play it on Spotify if you will, but find a record, or at least find the CD. Have some sort of physical connection to this album. Put it on, put your phone away, and just sit there with it and lock in with it. And it'll take you places. It is a fantastic representation of what truly original music can do to remove you from this planet and put you somewhere else that you didn't know could exist. And every time I hear this album, it does that to me. It puts me somewhere else because this music is from a different realm. I can't explain it any better than that. This album was a UK number 5 hit number 2 in the, US number 5, UK number 2. When it came out, and it came out in April of '67 in the UK, came out in August of '67 in the US, but just a classic track, album. I'll probably do the UK version at some point, because you got Red House and a couple other tracks on there, but really nice job with the labels on this one. Done from the experienced Hendrix team. And like I said, this one came out in 2014, this particular version of it, pressed by Quality Record Pressings, as they give you a really nice inner sleeve. The original cover was supposed to be a gatefold, but due to cost expenses, Reprise said no. But yeah, just a fantastic album. 10 out of 10, hands down, all day, no problem. Classic album. The Jimi Hendrix Experience. My name is Giggens. This has been me forgetting how to talk because this album's so good. Jimi Hendrix Experience, Are You Experienced? 10 out of 10, hands down. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you later.